What happens when the man who built a hotel empire from scratch walks into one of his own lobbies and sees a guest in a wheelchair turned away? Isaac Boyd stood outside one of his 15 properties, a mid-scale hotel just outside Denver. The building was clean, modern, and part of the chain he'd poured 20 years of his life into. He'd started with a single roadside motel and worked his way up, one tough decision at a time. Now, with over 1,000 employees across multiple states, things had grown beyond his reach. Recently, he'd been feeling the distance. Guest reviews had dipped slightly. A few complaints about service, staff attitude, nothing outrageous, but Isaac didn't trust filtered reports from district managers. He needed to see it himself. So he shaved his beard, dyed his hair a dull brown, put on thick glasses, and wore a simple gray jacket with a fake name badge. Ian. He booked a 2-night stay through a third-party site. No one at this location had ever met him in person. Most had only seen his face on company posters or emails, and he made sure those were low profile. It was a Thursday afternoon when he walked in. The lobby was quiet, clean but lacking warmth. A single receptionist sat behind the polished counter. Her name tag read Tanya. She didn't look up when Isaac stepped in. He cleared his throat. She finally glanced up. Checking in. Yes, reservation for Ian Brooks. She typed fast, not smiling. Got it, ID and credit card. He handed them over without a word. As she scanned them, the automatic doors behind him opened again. A man in a motorized wheelchair came in, slowly navigating the entrance. He looked to be in his late 30s, backpack strapped behind him. "Hi," the man said cheerfully. "I have a reservation, Derek Lorne." Tanya glanced at him, then back at the computer. "We don't have any accessible rooms available." Derek blinked. "I booked one last week. I called to confirm it yesterday." Tanya shrugged. "Well, it's not available now. You'll have to make other arrangements." Isaac turned slightly, watching. "I don't really have anywhere else to go," Derek said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I've been driving since this morning. Is there any way?" "Nope," Tanya cut in. "We're full." "I don't know what to tell you." Isaac's stomach knotted. Derek stared at her, stunned. "Can I speak to a manager?" "He's not in," she said flatly. "You can call corporate if you want. That's all I can offer." Isaac stepped aside, pretending to fiddle with his phone, stealing glances. Derek sat silently for a moment, then turned and slowly rolled himself back out the door. Isaac followed him outside. "Hey," he called quietly. "You okay?" Derek looked up. "Not really, man, but I'll figure something out. I've dealt with worse." "Want to ride somewhere?" Derek shook his head. "Nah, thanks though." Isaac watched him disappear down the sidewalk, then walked back inside. Tanya didn't glance at him as he passed. He went up to his room, sat on the edge of the bed, and exhaled hard. He'd built this company on treating people with dignity. That moment in the lobby, he couldn't shake it, not just the coldness. The way she acted like the guest didn't matter at all. He opened the company app on his phone. According to the system, there were still 2 accessible rooms available. One had been blocked off for maintenance. He called the front desk from the hotel phone. Tanya answered. "Hi, I'm trying to book an accessible room," he said, disguising his voice slightly. "We don't have any," she replied immediately. "What about one under maintenance?" "I said we don't have any," she snapped, then hung up. Isaac stared at the receiver. Later that evening, he went downstairs to check out the rest of the staff. A young woman named Eliza was setting up the breakfast area for the next morning. She looked exhausted but focused, her hands moving fast as she prepped trays and wiped down tables. "Hey," Isaac said, "you always do this alone," she nodded. "Yeah, been short-staffed for a while. Night shift's been helping out too when they can." "Why are you doing it now instead of in the morning?" "Because Tanya refuses to help and the new guy quit after 2 days." "If I don't do it, nobody will," she smiled faintly. "But I like making sure guests have a good morning, you know." Isaac nodded slowly. "That's good of you." She looked surprised someone noticed. Back in his room, Isaac couldn't sleep. He replayed the moment with Derek over and over. He'd seen enough. Tomorrow, he would reveal who he really was, and something was going to change. Isaac was in the lobby by 6:30. The overhead lights cast a sterile glow across the tile floor as guests trickled down for breakfast. He stood near the elevator, pretending to scroll through his phone, watching. Eliza was already behind the breakfast counter, laying out muffins and pouring juice into carafes. Her movements were methodical, her blouse slightly wrinkled, dark circles under her eyes. She nodded politely to guests, but no one seemed to notice how much she was juggling on her own. A family of 4 approached 2 kids chattering, the mother asking about oatmeal. Eliza answered quickly, then hurried back to refill the fruit tray. As she turned, she nearly bumped into Tanya, who had just emerged from the back office, coffee in hand. "Watch it," Tanya muttered, brushing past her without slowing down. Isaac caught Eliza's jaw tighten, but she said nothing. Tanya walked over to the front desk, sat down, and unlocked her phone. Isaac stepped closer to the breakfast area. "You slept at all?" he asked casually. Eliza glanced at him, surprised. "Couple hours. I had to finish restocking after the night audit. You're doing a lot by yourself." "Yeah, well, it's been like this a while. Anyone helping you out?" "Sometimes the maintenance guy, Marcus, he tries. But he's got his hands full with the elevators and plumbing issues." A guest dropped a spoon on the floor. Eliza bent down, picked it up, and went to grab a fresh one. She didn't stop moving. Tanya remained behind the desk, sipping her drink, her eyes glued to her screen. She didn't look up once. At 8, the new shift arrived. A young man named Riley. He looked barely 20, his uniform shirt a size too big, a visible rip near the hem. "Morning," he greeted Tanya. "You're late," she said without looking at him. Riley checked his watch. "It's 8:01. Clock in and start on the rooms. You've got 18 to flip," he hesitated. 18 by myself. Housekeeping's short today. Get moving." Riley looked toward Eliza, then to Isaac. He didn't argue, he just nodded and disappeared into the back hall. Isaac followed him discreetly, stopping at the vending area where he could still hear. Riley entered the laundry room, where piles of linens were already waiting. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work without a word of complaint. At 10, Isaac returned to the front desk and approached Tanya. "Excuse me," he said. "I had a question about the shuttle service." "We don't offer one," she said flatly, not lifting her head. "I thought it was listed on your website." "Then the website's wrong." He waited, expecting her to maybe offer an alternative ride share, taxis, anything. She didn't. He leaned on the counter. "Are you the only manager on property?" She finally looked up. "What's it to you? I'm just wondering who's in charge of resolving issues." "I handle guest problems," she said. "But if it's about your room or something, you'll need to file a complaint online." Isaac nodded slowly. "Got it." He walked away, pausing near the elevator. A woman in her 60s was struggling to carry 2 suitcases to the door. Isaac hurried over, opened it for her, and helped with one of the bags. "Thank you," she said, clearly relieved. "No problem," he replied. "Staff should have been on this." "They've been absent," she said delicately. "Except the girl doing breakfast." She was kind. When the lobby cleared out, Isaac approached the door to the back office. It was slightly ajar. Inside, Tanya was sitting with her feet up, scrolling through her phone again. An open bag of chips sat on the desk next to her. He knocked lightly. She glanced at him. "What now?" "I was just wondering, do you handle hiring?" "Yup. Are you planning to bring anyone else on soon?" "Not unless corporate tells me to." "What about all the open roles?" "That's not my concern. They don't pay me to care about that." Isaac stared at her. "You don't think it affects the guest experience?" She laughed, short and sharp. "Guests are always going to complain about something. I stopped bending over backward years ago. You ever think maybe that's part of the problem?" She lowered her feet and stood up. "Are you trying to tell me how to do my job?" "I'm just saying it doesn't seem like you're doing much of it." She stepped forward, arms crossed. "Listen, I've been here for 6 years. I've seen entitled guests, lazy temps, and corporate robots. I know what I'm doing. If you don't like it, you're welcome to leave." Isaac didn't react. "Thanks for the insight." He turned and walked out. By noon, he had seen enough. He made a call from his room. The corporate HR rep, Colleen, picked up. "I need you at the Denver South property in 2 hours," he said. "Bring an exit packet and my nameplate." Colleen paused. "Understood." Isaac met her in the lobby at 2:15. She arrived discreetly, as instructed. He handed her his room key and walked to the front desk. Tanya was leaning back in her chair again. Isaac stood in front of her. "Hi, Tanya." She didn't look up. "Yeah, I'm Isaac Boyd." She froze. Her eyes slowly lifted from the screen. I'm the CEO of this company, he said evenly. And I've spent the last 36 hours watching you lie to guests, treat your coworkers with contempt, and ignore your basic responsibilities. She opened her mouth but said nothing. We had a guest in a wheelchair turned away yesterday. You never logged that. You told another guest we don't offer a service that's clearly listed on our site. You've refused to train new hires, refused to assist staff who are overwhelmed, and you've spent the majority of your shift browsing your phone. You're done here, he said. HR is in the back office. You'll be escorted out after your exit interview. She stood there, stunned. Isaac didn't wait for a response. He walked past her and found Eliza still wiping tables. I need to talk to you, he said. She looked startled. Is something wrong? No. Quite the opposite. He led her to the office where Colleen was finishing paperwork. This is Eliza, Isaac told her. She's been keeping this place running. Colleen nodded. We've got her file. She's been here 15 months with no formal write-ups and consistently positive guest feedback. Isaac turned back to Eliza. You're being promoted to assistant manager, effective immediately. You'll get training starting next week, and we're bringing in temporary staff until we hire more full-timers. Eliza blinked. Wait, really? You've earned it. Her jaw trembled slightly. Thank you, Isaac nodded. First thing I need from you, make sure breakfast is a 2-person job from now on. She smiled, small and hesitant. I can do that. Good. As she walked out, Isaac sat down heavily in the office chair. The lobby outside was quiet, but it finally felt like the right people were in charge. By the time Isaac returned to the property the next morning, word had traveled. Tanya was gone. Staff members were tense but curious, their eyes following him in brief glances as he walked the corridors not as Ian, but as the man whose signature was stamped across every employee handbook. He didn't make any grand speeches. Instead, he stepped into the break room small, dim, and with a flickering fluorescent light and sat across from Marcus, the maintenance tech, who was eating from a plastic container of rice and beans. Marcus looked up mid-bite. Didn't expect to see you again. You've been covering more than just repairs. Someone had to, Marcus said without hesitation. We don't have a facilities assistant anymore. Tanya never replaced him. Isaac leaned forward. Did she ever ask for help from corporate? Marcus shook his head. She said it wasn't worth the paperwork, said we'd figure it out. Isaac noted it silently, then asked, how many open requests are you behind on? Last I checked, 32. Isaac didn't flinch. You'll get a part-time assistant by next week. And we'll fly out someone from facilities to help you clear the backlog. Marcus stared at him for a second, then nodded slowly. Appreciate that. Isaac stood. Keep doing what you're doing. You've been holding the place up. He left the break room and headed to the laundry area. Riley was there, pulling sheets from an industrial dryer. His fingers moved quickly, but there was a stiffness in his shoulders. Isaac approached and waited until Riley noticed him. Morning, Riley said, wiping his hands on his shirt. Didn't know you'd still be here. I am. And I noticed you've been covering rooms alone. Riley exhaled. Yeah, it's been brutal with just me and the weekend girl. Isaac gestured to the clean linens. How many rooms do you still have to flip today? 17. Anyone helping? No one's scheduled to. Isaac didn't ask him to push harder or stay later. You'll get a second housekeeper starting tomorrow. We're bringing in a temp from Fort Collins. Riley blinked. Seriously? Isaac nodded. We're not going to run this place on fumes anymore. Riley looked down at the cart. Thanks, honestly. Isaac left him to his work and made his way to the front office. Eliza was behind the desk, now in a clean blazer with a temporary assistant manager badge clipped to it. She was answering a guest's inquiry about early checkout with calm professionalism. Her posture was upright, deliberate. When she hung up, Isaac stepped beside her. You settling in? It's a lot, she admitted, but it feels good to actually do something that matters. You're going to be stretched for a while, he said, but you'll have the budget flexibility to make decisions. You don't need to wait for permission to fix obvious problems. She nodded, then hesitated. Can I ask something? Of course. Why didn't anyone notice what was happening sooner? Isaac looked out across the lobby. I stopped showing up. I relied too much on filtered reports. I thought I'd built a system that would self-correct. Eliza's voice was careful. It didn't. No, he said. It didn't. They were interrupted by a man in a business suit entering through the front doors. He paused, glanced around, then approached the desk. "Good morning," he said. "I'm with the city's Access Compliance Office. I had an appointment to inspect your accessible rooms." Eliza looked surprised. "We weren't told anyone was coming today." The man checked his clipboard. "You were supposed to be notified last week." Isaac stepped forward. "We'll take care of it. I'll walk you through myself." The inspector didn't know who he was but accepted the offer. As they made their way up to the second floor, Isaac asked, "What prompted the visit?" "Complaint was filed yesterday morning. Guest said he was denied access to a reserved accessible room." Isaac's jaw tightened. "Did he leave his name?" "Derek Lorne." They reached room 212. Isaac unlocked it and stepped back as the inspector began measuring the doorway, checking the bathroom layout, and testing light switch placement. "Room's compliant," he said after 10 minutes. "But denying him access could open you up to fines." "Do you know why it happened?" Isaac kept his face steady. "I do, and the person responsible no longer works here." The inspector made a few more notes and handed him a copy of the report. "If it happens again, you'll be hearing from legal." Isaac nodded. "Understood." After the inspector left, Isaac returned to the office and found Colleen seated at the workstation. She was reviewing files and organizing onboarding packets. "Got a minute?" he asked. She looked up. "Yes. I want a formal apology drafted and sent to Derek Lorne, a handwritten one." "From me?" Colleen raised an eyebrow. "We've never done that before." "We're doing it now. Include a full refund, a voucher for a week's stay at any of our properties, and a promise that we've made staffing changes." "I'll make it happen." Isaac turned, then hesitated. "And while we're at it, I want a new internal training module developed, one that focuses on empathy, not just procedure. Frontline staff need to understand that how we treat people is the brand, not the logo." Colleen noted it without comment. As Isaac stepped into the hallway, his phone vibrated. It was a message from the regional director, asking if everything was under control now. He didn't reply. He stepped outside for some air. The sky was overcast, the air cool. At the far end of the lot, a shuttle from a nearby property pulled in. A guest in a cast stepped off with some help from the driver. Isaac watched as Eliza walked out from the lobby, crossed the lot, and greeted the guest with a genuine smile. She helped him with his bag, then guided him toward the entrance. No hesitation. No indifference, just human decency. He stood there for a long moment, watching them disappear inside. Things weren't fixed. Not yet. But they were finally being repaired the right way. The following Monday, Isaac returned to the Denver property, this time unannounced but no longer disguised. He wore a charcoal sport coat, no tie, sleeves neatly rolled. The kind of presence that said, "I'm not here for ceremony, but I'm paying attention." He arrived at 9:30 in the morning, during the lull between breakfast rush and checkouts. The lobby felt different. Not polished yet, but steadier. The energy had shifted. Eliza was at the front desk, speaking softly with a couple in their 50s. She handed them a printed sheet and pointed to their room number with a pen. The woman gave a small nod and smiled. The man pressed his palm against the counter in thanks. When they left, Eliza turned and caught his eye. "I wasn't expecting you back so soon," she said. "I needed to see how things were holding together." She stepped away from the desk and lowered her voice. "We've had some bumps. The temp from Fort Collins showed up half a shift late and wasn't trained on our linen system. Riley had to double back on 4 rooms. But he handled it without complaining." Isaac nodded. "That's good. Growing pains are fine, just don't let them become excuses." "I won't." A man in a red maintenance polo passed by, pushing a cart with a small ladder and a box of light bulbs. "That's Connor," Eliza said. "The part-time assistant you sent. Marcus trained him on basic tasks. He's been solid so far." Isaac followed Connor with his eyes for a moment. "And Marcus, in the boiler room. 2 valves were flagged during inspection. He's replacing them before they become a problem." Isaac folded his arms. "Anyone still resisting the changes?" Eliza hesitated. "The night auditor, Caleb, he's been dragging his feet, still leaves things half done by morning." "Have you spoken to him about it?" "Twice. He says he's still adjusting." Isaac's tone shifted. We don't have room for people who opt out of standards. If it continues, send him to Colleen. She nodded once. Understood. He walked through the lobby, observing. The furniture was still the same, comfortable but unremarkable. A small framed sign now sat on the coffee table. We're listening. Tell us how we can serve you better. It wasn't flashy, but it was honest. He took the elevator up to the second floor. One of the previously blocked-off accessible rooms had a cleaning sign in front of it. Through the open door, Riley was finishing the bed, tucking the corners tightly. Knock, knock, Isaac said. Riley glanced back, wiping sweat from his brow. Hey, Mr. Boyd. Just Isaac. How's the temp working out? Better today, Riley said. He wasn't used to the way we rotate linens, but he's picking up fast. Still takes me longer to explain than to do it myself, but I get it, we've got to build capacity. Isaac stepped into the room. How's your schedule been? You holding up? I've been tired, but it's not burnout anymore, it's just work. That's a big difference. Isaac crossed his arms. Appreciate the honesty, Riley paused. You know, when you first showed up, I thought you were just another guest who wanted to file a complaint. Why? Because that's what we got used to. People pointing out what's wrong, but no one fixing anything. Isaac let that sit for a beat, then said, That's not the culture we're going to build. Good, Riley said, going back to his cart. Because if it is, I'd rather mop floors at a bus depot. Isaac smiled faintly and left him to work. Downstairs, he stepped into the small manager's office, now serving as Eliza's interim workspace. It still had Tanya's stale perfume in the corners and a few forgotten sticky notes on the wall. The filing cabinet was half open, revealing a stack of outdated check-in forms. Isaac began pulling them out, laying them on the desk. Some were improperly filed, others missing guest signatures. A few had handwritten notes in the margins, most in Tanya's handwriting, full of sarcastic commentary about guests. One read, Wheelchair guy, probably another complainer. He stared at it for a long time before putting it aside. Eliza entered a few minutes later, carrying a folder. Weekly incident logs, she said. I've started having staff write them out instead of just logging into the system. It gives more context. He flipped through a few pages. There were notes about slow elevator doors, a guest with a peanut allergy needing alternate breakfast options, and a child who'd gotten stuck in the revolving luggage rack. All minor, all addressed. Good system, he said. Shows initiative. She sat across from him. I've been thinking about long-term fixes, not just patchwork. Let's hear them. We need to shift some of the front desk load to a dedicated concierge role. Doesn't have to be full-time. Just someone who handles guest questions so desk staff can focus on check-ins and admin. Isaac considered it. You'd need to reallocate budget. I already have. I cut the snack inventory by 40%. We were overbuying. Guests weren't touching half of it. Smart. I also think we need to start a monthly listening session with staff, not a meeting, just an open floor 1 hour. You show up, you talk, or you don't, but it's there. Isaac leaned back. You're thinking about culture. I'm thinking about what would have helped me 6 months ago. He didn't respond right away. Finally, he said, You're going to make a strong GM one day. Her eyes widened slightly. I've never thought that far ahead. Start. The office phone rang. Eliza answered, her tone sharp and professional. Front office, this is Eliza speaking. She listened for a moment, then covered the receiver. It's a guest in room 407, says the card reader's jammed. Isaac stood. I'll go with you. They took the stairs. The hallway on the 4th floor was quiet. A woman in a blue dress stood outside the room, card in hand. I'm sorry about this, Eliza said. Let me reset the lock manually. Isaac nodded at the woman. Apologies for the inconvenience, she tilted her head. You're the man from the website. The CEO, right? He offered a small smile. Guilty. I've stayed here before. Place feels different now, in a good way. Eliza finished the reset. The door clicked open. If you need anything else, just call down, she said. The woman nodded and stepped inside. As they walked back down, Eliza asked, That happen often? Guests recognizing you? More now. I used to avoid it. Why? Because being known means being accountable. She looked over at him. And now, he didn't answer until they reached the bottom landing. Now I want them to recognize me. I want them to know I'm not just a name on the wall. That evening, Isaac sat in the empty breakfast area, now closed for the day. A cleaning crew worked quietly in the back. He filled out a set of notes for the board: leadership transition details, staffing updates, long-term investment needs. He paused when he got to the section labeled Incident Overview. He wrote only one sentence: "We failed a guest and we won't do it again." He folded the paper, placed it in his briefcase, and stood. Outside, the parking lot was quiet. The sky had turned soft with dusk, shadows stretching long across the pavement. He watched as Riley exited the back entrance, backpack slung over one shoulder, stopping briefly to chat with Connor near the dumpster. They laughed about something, then parted ways. Isaac didn't approach. He just watched. Then he turned toward his car, unlocked it, and drove off, not satisfied but assured. What he'd seen was no longer a company surviving in spite of its people. It was becoming a company being rebuilt because of them.